All right. Hey, what's up, friends, family, random strangers on the internet that might be seeing this video? I hate seeing myself, so it may take me a little bit of time to adjust to looking at myself on the screen here. But I made a post a few days ago. It's actually something I've been looking into for a few years. I noticed, me and a close friend of mine were talking one day, and he brought up the fact that he thinks in words, and that kind of blew my mind because I don't know how that works. And I thought maybe he was the weird one, so I started looking into it, asking a few other people, and it turns out that apparently a lot of people think in words, and the fact that I don't is the weird thing. So posted a little comment on Facebook asking some of my friends that follow me on social media to ask me any questions they might have about it. And if you do follow me on social media, then you probably know I talk about mental health a lot. Something I kind of just fell into doing because of all the mental health issues that I've had in the past few years. And if you guys enjoy this, maybe we'll do some more videos like that. The idea here is that I don't think in words. I don't really know how that works, so it's hard to describe exactly what that means for me. I think in pictures. I think in feelings. I think in a lot of abstract thoughts. And there's a lot of ups and downs that come with that. But without knowing what the ups and downs of thinking in words is, I don't really know what's different. So I'm just going to answer some of these questions. And if they spur any further questions or you have any comments, things like that, just, put them in the thing down below. But first question, do you daydream? Yeah, absolutely. I daydream pretty hardcore, actually. It was a problem in school. I was constantly getting lost. But when I daydream, and this is what I don't get about thinking in words, how would you daydream in words? Because when I daydream, it's almost legitimately like an actual dream. Like I feel feelings, I see what I'm imagining happening. I don't know. There's a lot to my daydreams. It's kind of like transporting into a whole different world, and I kind of always just assume that's what daydreaming is. So I don't know. If not, one of you word thinkers, let me know. How do I study? Barely. It actually pisses off a lot of people that I go to classes with. I know when I was in the Navy, I was in training, and we had this super hardcore training that you're supposed to be there like up to 3 to 4 hours after class ends, and class is an 8 hour day. So the fact that I was never there to study afterwards always made people assume I was going to fail, but then I ended up being kind of the top of my class. So I don't really study that much. I don't need to. The way I read, and I'm sure this will get into another question as well, but the way I read is I pick keywords and sentences and I retain those keywords. And I very rarely actually have to read an entire sentence to know what's going on, but that's different depending on what I'm reading. So if it's something more technical, then I have to read every detail, obviously. But if it's just like a fiction book, I typically will get through those really quickly, and that's because I don't read the entire sentence. I get character names, places, and then general emotions and drives from those stories. And that actually leads into something some of my close friends know about me. Being able to kind of cold read people is something I've always been fairly good at. I can just kind of look at you and get a good feel for who you are as a person. I'm not always right, obviously. It's not a 100% thing, but I know a few close friends. Hopefully, they will comment on things like this and back me up here. But a few close friends of mine have kind of been blown away by my ability to kind of get what they're saying and how they're feeling without them having to say or feel it, or show me what they're feeling, I guess. Anyway, next question. How do you give yourself pep talks? I don't. I don't know. I have before, I guess, but it was a very conscious effort, and it wasn't something that I really was comfortable doing. So I don't do it very frequently. I actually tend to do better when I feel like I'm being underestimated. So I kind of rely on people to think I'm gonna fail, or as I start to fail, seeing people look disappointed gives me kind of a drive to push harder and succeed to prove them wrong. I guess I don't know. I don't really have pep talks. It's just something I don't do. Do word thinkers do that a lot? I don't know. All right, next question. Do you dream? Do you talk in your dreams? Yeah, this comes with the PTSD, so it's a little bit dark, but I have constant nightmares, and those nightmares are in line with my thinking. I don't really. Do I talk in my dreams? No, I don't. I don't really talk in my dreams, but people talk to me, so I guess I do because that would be my brain creating words. But it's never me speaking to someone in my dreams. It's always someone speaking to me. And nightmares for me are very visceral, so it's very. Um, I don't want to say physical pain because it's not like I actually hurt, but it's emotional pain. It's like you ever had that sinking feeling in the pit of your stomach when you know you fucked up and you can't fix the problem, you know you're never going to be able to fix it? That's what my nightmares are. Like, that's constant every night when I sleep, what I feel. Which is not like, oh, poor pitiful me. I've kind of gotten used to it actually over the years. So that's just something that happens. But no, I don't speak myself in my dreams. Other people speak to me though. Do I win arguments in my head? Constantly, yes. And I don't know. I don't really know how to translate that into thinking without words, because I do have the arguments, but it's a feeling, and sometimes it is. I guess in that way I kind of do think in words. So that's another thing I wanted to point out. It's not that I'm incapable of thinking in words. It's just I don't have an inner monologue, if that makes sense. So for instance, if I really think about it, I can come up with a sentence that I want to say, but it takes conscious effort and mental energy. It's not an automatic system. The automatic system, and if I'm just imagining winning an argument in my head, I'm not really focused so much on what's being said as much as I'm focused on the feelings I'm conveying successfully and the feelings I'm trying to get them to feel successfully. And then in real life, when I have an argument or when I'm discussing things with someone, my focus is very rarely on the actual words anyone's saying. I'm hearing you talking. If I go into an analytical mode, I can pay attention to what you're saying and use the words as evidence. If I feel like you're lying to me or something like that, I'll often rely on the words. But again, it's just specific keywords. It's not, the entire sentence. I'm very rarely ever listening to an entire sentence that someone says. As a matter of fact, I talked to a friend about it the other day who has a similar kind of thing, and we talked about how if you've ever played like an RPG game, and when you're listening to dialogue options from an NPC that you've heard several times over, and you already know what they're going to say, you're just hitting that button like skip, skip, skip. That's kind of what I do in my head with books, talking, watching TV, listening to music. It's I kind of already know where you're going. So I just kind of drop out, and I don't do that to be rude. I mean, I do that to myself in my own head. So it's just that's what my automatic system is. My automatic system is not word based at all. It's very emotion driven and very kind of big picture, I guess. Not much on fine detail. Anyway, so next question: with no internal, unless intentionally, dialogue, do you discuss out loud pros and cons when deciding on something? Nope, I sure don't. I mean, I do if I'm talking to someone, but just for me, I pretty much I envision, okay, say this wooden ball is an object that I'm deciding pro, con, keep, throw away, right? I can imagine the space that this ball takes up. I can see where I would want to put this ball if I kept it, what I would be sacrificing if I put that ball there, what else would have to be moved. I can feel the emotions associated with the energy of moving this ball. As a matter of fact, one of my friends commenting made a really good analogy for that, and it's doing dishes. Like, I don't know what a word thinker thinks when they think I need to do dishes. Maybe it's just that I need to do dishes. I don't know. But for me, it's an image of dirty dishes and then a feeling of dread, and that's what she said as well, but I share that, and it's like that with most things. I need to mow the yard. It's the feeling of the heat, the feeling of being sweaty, the feeling of, well, in my case, having to crank a lawnmower that doesn't want to run, going to get gas, is the idea of having to be in public, a lot of things, and with anxiety and some of my other mental issues, that comes to play really hard because I'll be in a crowd of people there doing something and then start freaking out about the fact that I'm there doing that. Sometimes out of fear, sometimes out of just the sheer sensation overload, I guess. Yeah, I don't really know. Maybe that's something, if you have any direct questions, I don't know where else to go with that, because I don't know what you as a word thinker, how you process things like this. I don't get that at all. What do my thoughts sound like? So that's a good one. That's a great question. I don't know. They don't really sound like anything, I guess. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't really, don't know that I've ever heard a thought. I can imagine. Yeah, I don't know. I don't. There's no sound in my thoughts. Do you have sound in your thoughts? Like when you're speaking to yourself in words, do you hear your own voice in your head? Because that's crazy to me. I could not imagine that. I don't have that. Even when I'm awake and I'm imagining a conversation with someone else, I don't hear really anything. It's all feelings and facial expressions. I see a lot of facial expressions in my thoughts. Disgust or happiness or whatever like that. Like if I'm thinking about an argument I had with my wife, and I'm thinking about ways to make her happy, I envision myself doing something and her response. And that's, I don't get what kind of creeps me out about the whole thinking in words thing is like it would be kind of the difference to me. It would seem like the difference between watching a movie and reading a book. Not that either of those is better than the other, because with the book you do get a lot more detail, but with the movie it's so much faster to absorb information. And that's something I've always been good at. I'm really good at taking information in really quickly, processing it, and spitting out a result. But I've always been really bad at fine detail. So maybe this is why. I don't know. Let me know how you, as a word processor, do things. How do I read books? Well, I've kind of already answered that one. But essentially, it's just pick out keywords, get a general feeling for how things are happening, and if I find that one of my feelings is wrong, I can go back and like read the actual words, I guess, but it takes more of an effort to do that than to just kind of more naturally skim through the page, see the keywords, see what's going on. Because I mean, like if you have a sentence, let's say you have a sentence 10 words long, out of those 10 words, how many do you really need? I mean, the author, to paint a more clear picture, of course, I'm also a writer and a stand-up comedian, by the way, for those of you who don't know. So this whole thinking in pictures thing, as I think about it, gets a little bit weird in those things. But as a writer, I know to use words that are descriptive, pronouns and adjectives that add to a sentence. But also, as an author, I know that those words really are additions to the main thing I'm saying, and the overall point I'm trying to make has very little to do with those descriptors. So I read in a similar fashion. I don't tend to really pick up on the descriptors that often. They're not useful. They slow me down. And it's also, when I process information, I tend to try to be as efficient as possible about what comes in and what goes out. So I try to break everything down, and I have to make things personal, which is why I'm really bad at math. So if you tell me 1 plus 1 equals z, that never meant anything to me. 1 plus z equals 2. It never meant anything to me. Obviously, I can solve that because it's super simple, but just as an example, my biggest question to all of my math teachers were, why z? Why not question mark? Why not, a dot? And it drove them crazy. And I get it now as an adult, but as a kid, there was nothing to picture in my head. 1 plus a letter equals another number made no sense. And I get that it's just a placeholder, but why that placeholder? It drives me nuts. Things like that drive me insane. So when I'm reading a book, specifically, I skip things like that. Things I can't answer the question as to why they exist. I don't care. I don't know. I mean, like as a word processor, do you repeat the words you see on the page in your head word for word? Because that would drive me insane. That's the only way I can imagine you would do it besides the way I do it. And I don't know how to describe the way I do it. Besides to say I pick out keywords and paint pictures in my head based on those keywords. So, if you've got a character that's, I don't know, American Gods. You've got Shadow Moon, and he's out of jail, and he's going to, get his wife to pick him up, but they sit him down and they tell him that his wife died, and she died in the car with her boss, having intercourse with the boss while they were driving down the road. I didn't read any of the descriptors in that. I just Shadow Moon, out of jail, wife picking him up, wife's dead. But in my head, those things paint a picture. So I'm not really seeing the words so much. I see them long enough to add them into the picture. Once they're added into the picture, I forget about the words, and I'm just watching this unfold in my mind. So that's how I read books. Sorry if that was a long, complicated answer. Anyway, how do I think in my head if someone isn't talking to me? I'm naturally, I don't know. I don't know. If it's a logical thing, it's a little bit harder for me because it's harder to paint an accurate picture. I mean, I can do it, but it's very rarely accurate. So I'm wrong a lot about logical things like that. And it takes more effort to think that way. But if it's abstract, I mean, I'm the master of abstract thinking. Anybody that's had a conversation with me in person knows that I can think very abstractly and come at different angles from different things. And I don't know if that's because of the way I think or if it's just kind of a character trait of mine. I don't know. It's not always a positive thing. I'm not bragging. Sometimes it can be very bad that I can think so abstractly, especially with anxiety and depression. If it's logic-based, I kind of just automatically see an image of what I think it's going to be. Kind of like I was talking about with the ball in space. If I have this little ball, this is a logical thing. So pros and cons, weighing these lists, that's a logical idea. So I can see where I'm going to place it, things like that. But I'm very bad at impulse buying because of that. So, when I think, should I buy this $200 whatever it is, I just get excited about the feeling that I'm going to have when I have it. I get excited about all these things, and it's very hard to force myself to picture my bank account or a future where I need the money that I'm spending on that thing, because money really doesn't mean that much to me. Like legitimately, I'm not saying that like I'm not materialistic. I'm just saying legitimately, money as an item, unless I have it in cash in my hand, just doesn't really occur to me. So there's that. All right, and then they asked me, so like, what about what movie to watch? How do I decide what movie I'm going to watch? It's really kind of hit or miss with that one. I have a hard time, ask my wife, I have a very hard time deciding what movie to watch. And I don't really know what thought process I'm going through other than I go watch trailers and think about what emotions I want to feel. So if I'm particularly depressed or numb, I'll tend to want to watch a horror movie. And I know that might sound weird, but the horror kind of forces me to feel fear. And then feeling that fear, even though it's a shitty emotion to feel, kind of restarts my system. So I'm not numb. If I'm afraid, at least I'm not numb. So I'll watch something like that to get feeling back. If I'm anxious, I'll tend to watch either a documentary or some kind of scientific videos. Like How It's Made is a huge anxiety reducer for me, just because it's very, it shows me step-by-step procedures and things like that, and makes me feel calm, because I feel like there's something, you can do anything if you go step-by-step, which is another thing I think thinking in pictures really helps me with. And I read this in Elon Musk's book. He's similar in this regard, but when I consider a project I've got to do, I'll see it step by step in my head. And as I'm doing that project, I'm just fulfilling that step by step, which is why Buddhism is appealing to me. It's why I like working on cars. But, and this is a key thing, if you talk to me, you'll never know I like working on cars, because I don't know what anything in that car is called. I don't know any details about the car. I know in my head, step by step, what I need to do to fix the problem. No idea what it's called. I go into a parts store, I look like an idiot. I try talking to someone that's super into cars in general, I look like an idiot. But give me a wrench, give me the parts I need, put me in front of the car. Long as I know what I'm doing, I mean, like, as in I have done it before or watched a video on how to do it, I know step by step what I need to do. And that's based on my thought process. So movies, yeah, Tarantino films are my favorite. They're very visceral, and he directs in a way that is very pleasing to the way that I think. And I know a lot of people love Quentin Tarantino, so I don't think that's the only reason he's a great director. But I do really enjoy just the visceral, real, down to earth, personal, emotional kind of direction that he does, especially like Pulp Fiction and Hateful Eight. Love those movies. Anyway, all right. So here's a good one. How do I write a paper? And this person says, I just write. I can think of what I want to say and immediately write it down as I'm thinking it, which is why I can't talk and type at the same time, because I'll end up typing what I say instead of what I'm thinking to myself. Yeah, that's crazy to me. I don't know. I don't know. That seems super slow. Not that it's bad. I think you're probably a lot better at writing papers than I would be. A lot of my papers are great for their ideas and terrible for their execution. That's coming from teachers. But yeah, I don't know. So I tend to think, okay, let's say the paper is on global warming. I tend to think, what is global warming? And then do research and figure out what global warming is, get an overall picture of what global warming is. And then I just have a kind of abstract idea in my head that, okay, this is the point I want to get across, and I'll look at the little, if you're a writer especially, I do the same thing for writing jokes. I do the same thing for writing the stuff I write about mental illness. I'll look at that little blinking thing on the screen, and I'll usually sit there and stare at it for 5 or 10 minutes and just let the shit form in my head, and then I start typing and the words kind of come out. It's the same thing with talking. If I'm talking to you and I know you're, sad and I want to make you feel happy, I'll just set my mind to that goal and start talking, and the words kind of just come. I don't know how to put that. I don't really think through word for word what I'm about to say ever. And I've been told I'm very good at talking to people, so I guess that works out, even though it sounds like it would be really stupid. But when I say think about what you're about to say before you say it, what I mean is think about the impact you're trying to have and direct your intention towards that impact. And from what I'm reading there, it sounds like you guys literally mean think about the words you're going to say before you say them. And I don't get that, but I guess, we're all different, so that's cool. How do I write comedy and jokes, and how do I memorize things? I guess that kind of goes along with the paper writing and all these things. But memorization for me, I think, and that's something I've noticed over the years, I've been looking into this, memorization is super easy for me. And that's always, my buddy the other day, he was trying to connect to his Wi-Fi router, and he couldn't remember our passwords on our Wi-Fi routers are automatically set by the monopoly that controls our internet here in Alabama. But they're like, let's see, 3C90667CDB64. And I'll just commit that to memory by attaching meaning to it. So you've got 3 counts of 9,066 angels. 7 is angels. Like, I don't know. I don't know. And it only works short term for memorization like that. But I have to associate meaning to things. So if I'm telling a joke, I've got about a 20-minute set for my stand-up set now. I have to have memorized, and it relies heavily on delivery and timing and execution. Not every word has to be the same every time, though, which is great for me. I have done those where they have to word for word speech competitions when I was in school. But nowadays, my 20-minute comedy set, I have to at least get the setup and the punchline right, of course. I have to deliver it with the correct emotion and things like that. So the real labor in that is me emotionally getting into that headspace. Once I get into that headspace, I have key moments in my set where I know if I'm on track or not. If I've told this joke and it's wrapped up, then I have a general feeling about where I should be in my set. And if I'm not there, I make corrections. I used to freak out a lot, but that's what comes with experience and being on stage. I almost never, the biggest comment I get from experienced comedians is, hey man, you look really comfortable up there. And a lot of that comes from the fact that I am comfortable up there. It's not, You know, my jokes are very self-deprecating, and I know I'm going up there to be embarrassed, so the embarrassment doesn't really impact me, and I don't know. I don't have to think word for word what I'm going to say next because I know what I'm going to say next before I get up there, I guess. I don't know. It's interesting. Anyway, hopefully this has been kind of entertaining. Maybe it answered a few of your questions. If you have more questions, leave them in the comments either on Facebook or YouTube. And if you'd like to tell me something about the way you think, feel free to make a video and tag me in it. That'd be awesome. Bye, guys.